What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel and to the real episode 1 of Let's Play RuneScape Kingdoms, the role-playing game. I say the real episode 1 because we actually called the last episode episode 1 up front, but I retitled it to episode 0 because the goal of the last episode was really to just introduce us to the core rules of the game RuneScape Kingdoms and to the core ideas present in the Mythic Game Master Emulator. And to roll up a character, we have Twinnrova, who comes from a mining background in the kingdom of Mistalin. We have our catalyst, a letter telling of a great fortune, and our motivation to help people and to always try to make things better. We have our attributes and our stats. If you'll remember, we're starting with 2 out of 8 strength, 3 agility, 3 intellect, and most of our skills are starting at 1, but we do have 3 dungeoneering, 4 archaeology, and 6 mining. These all came from the mining background that we selected for our character during the character creation process in the last episode. All of these scores are out of 10, which is the max score for any given skill. And in today's episode, we actually want to kick off the adventure proper. And so let's start by thinking more about where Twinnrova is really from. I actually want to hone in on the Kingdom of Mistalin, and I want to say that my character is actually from Lumbridge, because that's the place that a noob character would spawn fresh off of Tutorial Island back in the day. I kind of want to capture that same feel and vibe in this game by starting in Lumbridge. And so our character is a miner, right? And so what makes a logical sense to me is that Twinnrova would have been traveling back and forth between Lumbridge and the mines in the Lumbridge swamp to improve his mining ability and to make money to live in Lumbridge. I'm thinking that is kind of Twinnrova's starting point and background. And so to help us get into the setting a little more closely, especially for anyone watching this that is not that does not have a background in RuneScape, let's take a look at what the setting book has to say about Mistalin and Lumbridge and the Lumbridge swamp, actually. Okay, yeah, so something to keep in mind is that this book is being written, all of this information is being written by Reldo, who is the librarian in Varrock Palace, right? And he has this nice little foreword, which is pretty fun. We also have a foreword by Charos or Karos. I think Karos, Scholar and Gentleman. It's pretty interesting, where he says that Gielinor is a world rich in remarkable creatures, astonishing magic, and fascinating people, of whom I am most assuredly one. Until now, however, we have been deprived of a truly accessible guide to our glorious world. Certainly no such volume has been written for those less erudite than myself. In writing this, therefore, Reldo is doing much more than simply recording valuable knowledge. He is rendering that knowledge available to all. And what more noble goal can there be? Let us therefore praise Reldo for the excellence of his work, the acuity of his mind, and the brilliance of his scholarship. Read well, learn deeply, and farewell. Charos. Karos. Well, I'll look it up. We'll get that right. That is pretty cool. Let's see. Yeah, Reldo says that this guide to Gielinor is intended to be a primer, an overview, rather than an encyclopedia. Let's see, it's a tour of the regions of Gielinor, a discussion of different deities. Yeah, okay, so there's not a lot of information we actually need here, except for this funny note. I thank the reader for their attention and for their money, Reldo. That is quite humorous. Okay, let's go back out. The first area that the book introduces is Mistalin, and so it's fitting that this is where we begin our journey. So let's dive into some of this setting background text. Mistalin is considered the cradle of civilization amongst the great kingdoms of Gielinor. Varrock, its capital, was founded at some point in the 4th Age, though it was known as Avaraka then, or Avaraka, and remains a place of remarkable grandeur, as well as one of the most influential places on the continent. Mistalin's climate tends towards cool and damp. The landscape is dotted with large lakes, making fish plentiful and ensuring the earth is fertile. Mistalin has a lot of farms, Agriculture is the economy's spine, and the culinary arts are a natural concomitant of that. As such, Misthalyn's taverns and inns possess an enviable reputation. You'll find very few places serving substandard food. It's not all farming and cooking, though. Skilled craftspeople can also be found in most of the major settlements, and their artisanship also contributes towards the kingdom's economy. Varrock, however, predominates and is an ideal place to begin our survey of the kingdom. Alright, so we have this image that looks like this would be a tower in Varrock. There's a nice statue of Saradomin, I believe one of the gods of this game world. That is really sick looking. Okay, so we're gonna glance over Varrock's description because that's not where the story begins. We'll come back to these areas as we need to. We'll reference the source material. Look at this sick artwork of the Varrock Palace. So this is like the capital city of the Kingdom of Misthalyn, and Lumbridge is another town in Misthalyn. All right, so here's our description that we can work with. While not quite as old as Varrock, Lumbridge still has a storied history. The bridge for which the town is named opened up trade and contact between places without previous means of communication. Even Al-Kharid became suddenly accessible. Lumbridge quickly fell under the auspices of a duke, and while these dukes eventually ended up owing their fealty to the king in Varrock, ooh, interesting, so they didn't always, they've maintained some degree of autonomy. The current duke, Horatio, is merely the latest in a lengthy line of such potentates. Indeed, he is a direct descendant of Polonius, the very first to occupy the position, name himself such, and have no one to oppose him. Horatio's popularity is steady, and his people speak well of him for the most part. He's lived quite a life, engaged in a few wars, including the occasional encounter with dragons, and while he tolerates the presence of an advisor, Sigmund, a known member of Humans Against Monsters, which is like a cult in the game world, he does not seem to share their prejudices. I won't write any more about Ham here, else the entire book become a poisonous diatribe about the stupidity of humankind. Architecturally, at least, Lumbridge is a very beautiful little place, quite picturesque despite its age. It's famed for the quality of its cooking, something I can personally attest to. Lumbridge Castle, home of the Duke, has a kitchen almost unparalleled anywhere in Gielinor. There's also a stoutly built church dedicated to Saradomin, as one would expect in Misthalyn, and tended by Father Eric. He's not the most active or engaged of priests, and is often mocked for his tendency to panic when trouble arises, but he's honest and decent-hearted. As with most urban centers in Misthalyn, there's a large market, and many foreign merchants choose to stop and sell at Lumbridge rather than making the additional trek to Varrock. This makes it something of a lure to those who seek rarer goods, and the population of the village fluctuates as a result. Now that is quite interesting, that traders might not want to take the trip all the way to Varrock and might stop short in Lumbridge, especially if it's something more, I don't know, different or interesting that needs to stand out amongst the crowd. Maybe they choose the smaller but still substantial market in Lumbridge. That is quite interesting. The nearby farms ensure there's always work and food for those seeking it, as well as other necessary resources. Wool, for example, can be found for a very reasonable price at Fred's farmhouse, not too far from Lumbridge. It's a fine place for inexperienced adventurers to begin their escapades, but that doesn't mean it's safe. It lies too near to Lumbridge Swamp. A truly bleak stretch of mud, withered vegetation, and turbid water. Lumbridge Swamp is not somewhere I've visited on my holidays, though it does tend to attract adventurous sorts. There's even a small camp deep into the recesses of the place where such types gather. There's always a couple of warriors, rangers, or mages hanging out there, clearing out the more pestilential vermin breeding in the marsh with the hope of earning some gold. So this kind of sets the scene for Twinnrova. As a character, he lives in Lumbridge. We're not exactly sure where. I imagine that he lives in some kind of small home. Would he have a house to his own? What are the odds that he would have a house? I guess if he's mining, there needs to be a place for him to live. It's possible that there could be some kind of like group living facility where multiple miners live, maybe funded by a a company, right, that wants the ores, that might be shipping the ores to some other place. So why don't we actually start here with our gameplay and exploration. All right, this is it. This is us really beginning to play the game right now. I'm gonna jump to the back of the book. Yep, collected tables and sheets of Mythic. We want to go to the fate chart, and if I look at our adventure, this is, so we don't actually have the first scene yet. So scene 1, okay. This is really background information, preparing the first scene. So we're not really into the adventure yet, but this is some background information that'll help us to set the first scene. The chaos factor will start out at 5, and for these background questions, it makes the most sense to roll with 5 anyway, so that we have balanced numbers. Okay, so let's think. What are the odds that Twinnrova has his own home as opposed to a shared living facility? I'm going to say that it's very unlikely that he actually has his own home. I imagine that there are a lot of people that live in Lumbridge and Varrock, and that Mistalin, it's called the bread basket, right? Let's see. The bread basket of Mistalin. Lumbridge forms a key part of the famed bread basket of Mistalin. Interesting. Spread out across the south of the kingdom, a network of farms till the rich soil and produce an abundance of food and other goods. This not only ensures Varrock and the other parts of the kingdom are well fed, but assists in ensuring Mistalin's preeminence as a trading nation. For those who dwell there, life is stable, quiet, and for the most part, good. The day is dedicated to caring for animals in the land, and the memories of wars with vampire lords are long past. Though that doesn't mean ravening beasts pursuing the taste of cattle don't happen along every so often. Even in such an apparently tranquil place, there's always work for an adventurer. That is something good to keep in mind. So Lumbridge is a part of this breadbasket of Mistalin, and that makes me think that there are probably a lot of people that live here. Fewer than Varrock, but it makes me think that it would be difficult to own your own home. You probably have large families that own a farm together, right, and that live together, rather than people living on their own. We don't know of any family that Twinnrova has at this point, and so I think a fair question to start off would be whether or not Twinnrova is living in some kind of group miners barracks living facility. The way I'm going to phrase the question is, does he have his own home? And I'm going to say it's very unlikely, so we're going to roll this D100. This is going to be our first mythic fate question. And if I roll under 25 or under, then yes, he has his own place to live. If it's over 25, then he lives in some kind of shared living quarters. All right, here we go. And we get a 14, so yes. Wow, right off the bat. Twinnrova does live on his own. Is this a small... I'm assuming it's probably a very small space, but I don't know for sure. Let's ask. Let's say it's likely that his home is small. So we'll go ahead and roll again, aiming at a 65. 26. So yes, his home is small. Wow, is there any land? So I imagine your typical small home in Lumbridge. Who knows where it is? Is it out in the country as opposed to being close to the castle? Let's call this a 50-50. If it's a yes, then he lives out in the country, and if it's a no, then he lives closer to the castle. Actually, okay, when you phrase fate questions, you want to have the more active choice be a yes and the less active choice to be a no. I think the more active choice here would be living close to the castle, where more is kind of happening. Yeah, so we'll make that a yes. Yes, we live in a small home close to the castle. Otherwise, we live out in the country. It's a 50-50, and we get a 10. Excellent. So we do live in a small home near enough to Lumbridge Castle. That is actually really cool. So there must be some kind of residential area, probably small and with several of these little, I don't want to call them huts, but just small living quarters for one or for small families, right? Near enough to Lumbridge Castle. And if you're used to playing RuneScape, something that you'll have to do for the tabletop role-playing game is to kind of change your image of what those areas look like. Like, for instance, we know exactly how many buildings there are in Lumbridge in the game, but a video game is greatly restricted in the amount of space, right, that a town can take up. And real cities and towns are much larger and have more buildings. They cover more space. So as we play the game, especially if you're familiar with RuneScape and you know how big things are literally, try to suspend your memory of exactly how big something is and let it expand to the size in your mind as if it were a real town or a real city. Okay, so that's just to say that we know that in RuneScape there is a small cluster of buildings near the castle, and it's probably not big enough to have like dozens of families living there. But in the tabletop role-playing game, we can expand that idea and think that, okay, to the let's see, that would be just to the south of the castle, there's this large-ish or maybe medium-sized residential area with a lot of small, really basic homes. Maybe you can regularly see smoke rising up from their houses because it's cool in Mistalin, right? Maybe people cooking. Maybe there are people playing outside in that area. And if it's a relatively peaceful kingdom, Mistalin, right, then it should be expected that we see people regularly coming and going to and from the castle. The market would be on the north side of Lumbridge. So imagine, okay, this is actually a good thing to do, especially if you don't play RuneScape. Imagine the River Lum, okay, this peaceful, large, rushing, raging river that comes down from the north through Varrock, right, and makes its way to the south, I guess near Varrock, right, makes its way to the south and cuts directly through Lumbridge. And actually, Lumbridge is named that way because of a bridge that was built over the River Lum. So we have this epic old bridge, right, that was built across this river. And on the western side of the bridge is a large castle. This is Lumbridge Castle. It has a large wall protecting the inner, the actual fortification, right? Or actually, I guess the outer part might be called the fortification. Outer walls protecting the inner keep. And to the north of this is a market, and to the south of this, all on the west side of the river, is a place crowded with buildings of all different kinds. Most of the shops actually exist to the north of the castle, right? It's almost like you have a market district with a lot of different shops to the north and a residential area to the south. And this is actually it's a pretty good way to envision the world early on. And so we also have the Lumbridge Church, which is a large church directly across from Lumbridge Castle, and that actually might be what this is trying to depict. This artwork could in fact be the Church of Lumbridge. Now that I think about it, this could be looking right at the Church of Lumbridge with the statue of Saradomin in the front, and behind the church is a graveyard, and beyond the graveyard is the Lumbridge Swamp. And the Lumbridge Swamp is a large, marshy, disgusting, vile wasteland, right? I shouldn't say wasteland. There's plenty of life, right? There's spiders, rats, there's all kinds of nasty things that live in the swamp, and there are mines. And so there should be regular paths that miners take through the swamp to reach there should be 2 large mines in the Lumbridge Swamp. And so Twinnrova's life probably consists of leaving the Lumbridge's residential area to travel probably in groups to the southeast Lumbridge Swamp mine, right? We can consider it... that's a good question. Why don't we ask, are there multiple mines in the swamp? I'm going to say that this is very likely. There should be multiple mines in the swamp. 50, so yes, there are multiple mines in the swamp. Yeah, we'll say that the southeast Lumbridge Swamp mine, is the closest one to the settlement, and so it's the location where most of the miners will go. There are other mines in the swamp, but it's more dangerous to reach them. It's more of a struggle, and so the majority of the mining population is going back and forth to this same mine. So there should be a pretty well established but still dangerous path to the Lumbridge Swamp southeast mine that we are going to be focused on, at least when imagining Twinnrova's background. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So he's going back and forth between Lumbridge Castle, not Lumbridge Castle, but his home beside Lumbridge Castle, to the mine, and then he takes these ores to the market where he sells them, and there might even be regular traders that just make the trip back and forth from Lumbridge to Varrock needing ores, but also there's a furnace and there's a smithy in Lumbridge. So you have local, right, buyers that are wanting to buy ores, and you have, I guess, small distance, right? You have people from Varrock that come to buy ores. So there's a good economy for mining here in Lumbridge. I guess most of the people here are focused on agriculture, so mining might even be somewhat of a profitable skill in this area where more people are focused on agriculture than mining. But yeah, I think that gives us a pretty good picture or starting point of an idea of who is Twinnrova, what is his world like that he lives in. This is probably the way that most of his life has gone. And one day he receives a letter. We can assume that mail gets delivered, right, to people in Lumbridge. Let's see, there's probably some kind of, what is it, like a courier service where someone has to come and find you to give you your mail. Let's see, so here's a question. Is there a mailbox, right? Do we have like mail slots in our houses, or is there a courier? Is there enough mail going around for there to be a mailbox? That is a great question. So let's say that it's unlikely that each home has its own kind of like mail setup. So that'll be a 35 if that'll be a 35 on a D100 if each home does have some kind of like a mail slot or something. In 50, that's a no. So there's a courier that needs to come and find you, needs to know who you are, how to tell who you are, and give you a letter. Maybe in your home at a certain time of night, they just assume that you're going to be home. So with that being said, our story is going to start with Twinnrova. Let's see, maybe he's home. Let's see, is he at home? I'm going to say when the courier finds him, it's nearly certain that he's at home. But we'll just, we'll see. 89. No, he is not at home. Wild. Okay, so where is he? He is returning from the swamp, right? The courier, there's no way he's going to go into the swamp to find Twinnrova, hunt him down, to give him a letter. So let's say that Twinnrova is returning home from the swamp when the courier notices him. Let's actually make this the first scene of the game. So scene 1, we're going to say a courier approaches Twinnrova. Okay, so this courier, I don't know, for some reason I imagine that it's a child. It doesn't have to be, but I just, my intuition, like what I remember from other RPGs, is that some like younger person is being paid, kind of like a newspaper boy, right, to bring you your mail. Knows Twinnrova, notices him coming home from the swamp, and says something along the lines of, "Hey, I've been looking for you. I have a letter for your eyes only." That's what they say in Skyrim, right? Your eyes only, or something like that. Runs up to Twinnrova, hands him the letter, and I imagine the sender pays for it, right? Do you have to pay when you receive mail in a courier service? Let's ask. Do you have to pay to receive your mail? I think it makes more sense to have to pay on the sending end. So let's say that we're not... Oh, we actually have no gold. That's interesting. We started the game with 0 GP. It's not super realistic because Twinnrova probably has some kind of a stash of money from mining, but that's okay. We'll work on that. So we don't have to pay for it, but we receive this letter. Maybe the courier, runs off to deliver his next thing. And we're walking. Okay, Twinnrova's walking from the entrance of the settlement to his home. He just received this letter, and he's opening it to read it. Okay, now something that we need to do, that we usually need to do in Mythic, is to test a scene. I think for the first scene, we're going to skip that. I really want this to be the starting point of the campaign. It just makes the most sense with our catalyst that we rolled. So starting in scene 2, we'll be testing each scene to see if something random happens, or if the scene is altered in some way. Okay, so we're heading home. We have the letter, and what we want to know is what is in the letter. Okay, so the text that we have for our catalyst, let's see, a letter telling of a great fortune waiting for you arrived out of nowhere. So what could it actually say? Does it have some kind of a riddle on it that has to do with wealth? Does the letter... So it's anonymous. First off, we know that the letter is anonymous. So Twinnrova is confused. Maybe he doesn't receive mail very often. Does Twinnrova receive mail very often? I'm going to say it's... we don't know, because he could have family. Why don't we say it's unlikely that he regularly receives mail? And if he does receive mail often, that's going to imply that we have family in some other location. So we'll say unlikely. We get a 42, so no, he does not often receive mail. So he's actually surprised when he receives this letter. Okay, as he opens it, does the letter have some kind of riddle on it? And I don't know the answer to this, so I'm going to make this... I think it's a cool idea. Let's make it 50-50. A yes is a riddle. 26, so yes, there is a riddle on the letter. Now, I'm not intelligent enough, I don't think, to come up with a riddle on the spot. Maybe I'll brainstorm this outside of the session for another video, but there's a riddle on the letter hinting at some great fortune. Is the letter handwritten? Yeah, they don't have a printing press. Everything's handwritten, right? Do they have... Can they print in RuneScape? Let me think. Is there a printing press? Yeah, there are books. Of course there are books. Are books handwritten? Or do they have some way to press them? They might even have a magical way to create books. So we'll assume that books do exist. There is some kind of way to print in World of RuneScape, and actually might make it a question. I'm going to say that it is certain that there is some method of printing in RuneScape. Just in case that there's not, this will be a 90 to succeed, and 22. Okay, so now we have a random event. So the chaos factor right now is 5, and we just rolled a 22, which is a double under the chaos factor. So the first thing that we do is we resolve the fate check. So yes, there is some manner of printing, right? There is some manner of printing in the world of Gielinor. So my next question was going to be whether this letter is handwritten or not, but a random event is going to happen now. And actually, because I think my character could notice whether it's handwritten or not by this point, I'm going to go ahead and ask my question. First, I'm going to ask, is this a handwritten letter? And I'm going to say that it's likely, since this is I'm going to say it's very likely. No, not even. It's nearly certain that this is a handwritten letter. And the reason why I think that is because it's just like a one-off thing, right? It's not like this riddle is being printed and disseminated to everyone. Or is it? I think we do actually need to allow for the possibility that this letter has indeed been sent out to a lot of people, not just me personally. So we're going to make it very likely that this is a handwritten letter, and that implies that it's only been sent to me. But it just implies it. It doesn't mean we know that for certain. That is a 75, and we roll a 26. Okay, so we're reviewing this handwritten letter, trying to understand the riddle, when out of nowhere, a random event happens. So this is going to be our first time to encounter a random event in Mythic, right? And this is going to throw twists into our game anytime we roll doubles underneath the chaos factor. And I'm so excited that this is already happening in the first scene because it's going to make things more fun. This is great. Now, who knows what it's going to be about? The random event focus table knows. So we're going to roll on the random event focus table. I will explain what these are as they happen in game, because I think it'll be easier that way. So let's start by rolling a d100. This is what the focus of the random event is about. We get a 46. That is an NPC positive. That is a positive to the a character on our characters list. Well, if we look at our characters list, we only have the anonymous sender of the letter. So this is something positive that happens to the anonymous sender of the letter. This is a random event. Interesting. Something positive that is focused on the anonymous sender of the letter. So it doesn't have to happen to them, but it's definitely about the anonymous sender of the letter. Yeah, we have right here, you want to shift the focus of your adventure onto an NPC right now, maybe to develop new storylines in your adventure. Okay, so next we're going to roll on the action meaning table, and this is going to tell us what happens in the random event. And sometimes these are a challenge to interpret, but it's really cool. You'll see how it works. We're going to generate a pair of random words that will inspire a random event for us. All right, the first word is 67. We get overthrow. Interesting. We get overthrow, maybe let's see, 76. Overthrow power. Overthrow of power. Wow. Maybe the letter is suggesting, maybe the letter is a riddle suggesting that if we were to help overthrow a particular power, then we would be rewarded with great wealth. And maybe it's being sent to us in the form of a riddle, because the author, and it's anonymous because the author doesn't want anyone to know that they're asking for help, and they don't want the meaning of the letter to be just blatantly obvious. Just blatantly obvious to anyone who would happen to intercept the letter. Wow, so a courier approaches Twinnrova with a letter containing a riddle hinting at overthrowing some power in return for fortune. Oh my gosh, this is an excellent starting point. Okay, so immediately we're getting some kind of like a request to overthrow some power. But who sent it? What power are they hinting at? And why me? Why Twinnrova? Twinnrova is a minor. Is there anything special about Twinnrova that we don't know about? I don't know, because we don't know. That's really hard to know. The riddle itself might give us a hint at who we are meaning to overthrow. And when I think about the storylines near to Lumbridge, it's possible. Do I want to throw my own idea out there, or do I want to let fate guide us on our way? We could ask if Twinnrova understands the riddle. I don't know if that's going to help us. I don't know if it's going to help us or not. But Twinnrova can make an intellect check to try to understand the riddle and who it's talking about. That is a great idea. Okay, so why don't we go to our character, Twinnrova. Yeah, Twinnrova. Oh, yeah, here are the tabs. I was mixing up this for this. This is the breadcrumb. These are the tabs. Okay, so Twinnrova has an intellect of 3. Is there any skill that would account for understanding a riddle? I think it's just a raw intellect check, but every test is supposed to be paired with a skill. So what is the closest skill towards solving a riddle? Would it be, let's see, I could think thieving for understanding, like thieves would probably speak to each other in riddles. So far that's the closest I can think of. Not really magic or prayer. Yeah, I think that thieving is probably the closest, at least at this moment. If you have a better idea for this, I'd love to hear it. What skill would you choose to pair with your intellect to try to solve a riddle of a letter being sent to you about overthrowing some power? Very interesting. Okay, so if we combine our intellect of 3 with our thieving of 1, then that is a 4. And so to perform an intellect thieving test with the goal of trying to understand from the riddle who is the power that we're being asked to overthrow, we will roll 3d6, and we need to roll a 4 or lower to succeed. So it's very unlikely that we're going to succeed at this, but we are going to make an attempt, and that'll be our thieving skill, which is cool. Keep in mind that every skill that we use in a session becomes a candidate for upgrading at the end of a session. So why don't I put like a check mark, right, by thieving. Yeah, I'll do like a plus symbol to show that we have tested this skill. And even if we fail, it still is up for upgrade because we attempted to use it. Now, is solving a riddle really a good, representative of thieving? It could be. I think it could be, but I don't know. Interesting. All right, we're going to roll 3d6 and see if we can land a 4 or not. Or lower. Roll under. And we roll a 9. That is absolutely a no. We are definitely not able to decipher the meaning behind the riddle. Okay, so Twinnrova receives this letter. He has this riddle. He understands at least that this riddle is asking him to do something to overthrow some power for money. But he doesn't know why they picked him, and he doesn't know who sent it, and he doesn't know the power that needs to be overthrown. He has so many questions. Now, where would he go to get more information about this? He wants to make the world a better place. He probably feels the need to act on this information, or else we're not going to have a campaign series, right? The question is, what does he do about it? So we're going to say that he goes home. We're going to call this still the same scene. He approaches his home. Let's see. Let's have some let's have some flavor information about his house. What does he have in his house? Does he have let's see. Does he have a fireplace? I'm going to say it's very likely. Okay, that he has a fireplace, a small one. Ooh, a fireplace like a chimney. Yeah, let's see if he has some kind of small fireplace. Let's just call it likely. So 75, that is no. He does not have a fireplace. He has a very simple home. Let's actually go to the description. You know what? We're just going to keep it. We're going to say that his home is simple. He's not extremely wealthy. So he might just have like your simple like table and chairs, a bed. There might be 2 rooms, like a main entry room / living room area and 1 bedroom. The kitchen might actually be visible from the living area. It might all kind of be one big thing other than the bedroom, which is interesting. And let's say he sits down in a wooden chair in his room, and he's in his home, right? And he's pondering the riddle. Does he have some kind of a fur rug in his home? I don't know. Let's call that likely. I'm kind of picturing it. 85, no. He doesn't have even that. This is a very simple. Does he have any kind of decorations in his home? We're going to say it's unlikely since we failed at the past 2 rolls. It makes me think that it's not likely that he has very many decorations in his house. That is a 39. That is also a no. Very, very simple. Very simple home. Sitting on his wooden chair. Thinking about what to do with this riddle. And he knows Misthalin, right? So he knows that in Lumbridge there is a sage. Yes, there is a sage in Lumbridge. And what does the sage do in the normal game? The sage teaches the player. Do they teach the player about safety? The Lumbridge Sage might be like a fourth wall break. We have, okay, so thinking back to the video game, there's the Doomsayer. And the purpose of the Doomsayer is to basically allow to teach the player about dangerous areas in the game. There are like danger messages that appear everywhere, and you can use the Doomsayer to kind of reset those messages. And that person usually is set up near the castle. But there's also the Lumbridge Sage, and the Lumbridge Sage might be like an intro character for maybe just to learn some basic information about Lumbridge in the area. I think the Lumbridge Sage is like a local historian. I think that's his role in the game. And so the odds are that Twinnrova knows who the Lumbridge Sage is. So why don't we say that Twinnrova, with his letter, his riddle in hand, thinks to himself that he wants to travel to the sage and bring the riddle. Does he want to bring the riddle to the sage? I think he does. I think that is his best bet. It makes the most sense that he would try some local solution first. He wouldn't just up and go off. He spent the majority of his life in Lumbridge. He might have been to Varrock before, but probably not often, right? He probably doesn't have to go to Varrock often. So it makes sense that he would try something local before he tries something far away. Okay, so the Lumbridge Sage in RuneScape. Let's actually do a search for the Lumbridge Sage to get a good idea of the art. Here is the Lumbridge Sage. This is what he looks like in RuneScape. This guy with a book in his hand and a staff that looks like the shape of a question mark. So we have this old man that maybe he makes money by telling stories near the Lumbridge Castle. I wonder if he's funded by the castle. Twinnrova doesn't know this, but he usually sets up by the castle and tells stories about Lumbridge's, let's say, local history. He's almost like a local book author discussing local history. That's kind of what I'm imagining. So Twinnrova at night, let's see, he just got back from mining. What time is it? It's probably the afternoon. Does he want to go tonight, or does he want to go talk to the sage later? Okay, I guess he's going to travel. Let's see, is this all on the first scene happening? So let's say that on the first scene, he's in his house, he receives the letter, he ponders in his room, and he decides that he wants to go speak to the sage. So Twinnrova decides that he wants to question the Lumbridge Sage about the riddle. And we'll get a little faster at this in the future. This is going to kind of go slow at first just because the story is taking off. We have a lot of questions still. And as we get into the rhythm of actually playing the game. For the second scene, we're going to have Twinnrova get up and exit. We're going to start a new scene. He's heading to the castle from his home, so it's a very, very short walk, to see if the sage is in position out in front of the castle. This is going to be scene 2, and we're actually going to test this scene. So with Mythic, let's see, do we have some kind of description of a test here? No, it doesn't look like that rule is present here. We can jump to, let's see, fate questions, random events, scenes is probably where this is at. So we have our lists, we have our scene structure. At the end of a scene, there's some bookkeeping that we'll need to do. Actually, I forget. Good thing that I looked at this. So, we kick off the scene, we test it. It's either the expected scene, which we kind of automatically had an expected scene for scene 1. It's altered, or it's an interrupt. We play out the scene, and then we do some bookkeeping. So in this scene, the first question that I have is, was Twinnrova in control of the story? And I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that, you know, nothing too chaotic happened to him, but he received this letter that is probably bad news. It's partially good news, partially bad news, but it's definitely chaotic compared to his normal life, and he doesn't know a lot about it. And that's hard. So the chaos factor is going to increment by 1 to 6. We now have a chaos factor of 6. Okay, if a character was invoked during a scene, then we're supposed to add them to the character list again, right? Also, if a thread was invoked during the scene, then we want to add a thread to the list again. So this thread exists because the first action happened. This is our first thread. But this character was invoked. We did have a random event that invokes this character. So I'm actually going to add a row 3-4 anonymous sender of the letter. We're going to have this entry twice because not only did we, I guess, preload the characters list with the sender, but we invoked the sender during the scene. So that's going to add a second entry for that character on our characters list. Is there another thread? You might say find the Lumbridge Sage. Find and speak to the Lumbridge. Actually, this is a part of discovering who sent the letter and why. I'm not going to create a new thread for that, just because it seems to be kind of in line already with our first thread. That makes sense to me. Okay, so now we need to test the scene. And when we test a scene, let's see if I can find the rules here. These are all different ways to come up with your first scene. Thankfully, we have the catalyst that kind of made this easier for us. But all right, so expected scenes, altered scenes, and interrupts. So here is our table to test the expected scene. We're going to roll 1d10. We're going to compare it to the chaos factor. If we roll over the chaos factor, which is 6 right now, we're going to get the expected scene. If we roll under it, an odd number, we're going to get an altered scene. And if we roll an even number within the chaos factor, we're going to get an interrupt scene. An altered scene will be the same scene but with a twist, while an interrupt scene is going to be the same scene or a completely different scene that interrupts the scene we were hoping to have. And that is, that is how the scene test works. So for scene 2, we're going to roll a d10 and hope for a 7, 8, 9, or 0. And we get a 1, so we have an altered scene. So this is the same scene. We're going to, so Twinnrova travels to Lumbridge Castle to find the Lumbridge Sage. Okay, but something is going to be different about the scene. And what is it? It just needs to be a tweak. So as we leave our house and we're walking through the houses, right, in this residential area of Lumbridge towards the castle, there's something distinctly different about the scene. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that change is, so I'm going to use a nice little tool from Mythic GME 2nd edition that actually was originally released in one of the Mythic magazines. Mythic Magazine is a really, honestly sick source of solo RPG content. And again, you can use Mythic for more than just solo role-playing. I just, in the past month, had a group of 3 people. Each of us rolled up a Mythic RPG character, and we're playing without any preparation using Mythic as a game master. So it's not just for solo play. It's also useful for group play. But yeah, Mythic Magazine has a lot of awesome content, and this is something that came from the magazine, got rolled into the 2nd edition of Mythic GME. This is the scene adjustment table. So if I'm not sure what to do about an altered scene, if I don't just have an idea that jumps out at me, I can use this to kind of help create that scene tweak. So this says, for a more randomized tweak, roll a d10 and consult the adjustment table to see what element changes in your expected scene. Okay. Yeah, so then there's a make 2 adjustments roll that can cause you to kind of like loop, but I think there's a limit, right? Yeah, let's see. If this roll is generated again, simply ignore it and re-roll. If you roll 2 results that conflict with each other, ignore the second roll and just use the first. Okay, so at most we can have 2 tweaks, and if the second is contradictory to the first, we ignore it. Okay, so those are pretty simple rules. So let's go ahead and roll a 1d10 for our scene adjustment table. We get a 2, so we're going to add a character. So as we are walking, leave our home and head towards the castle to meet with the Lumbridge Sage, we actually have a new character enter the story, which is pretty cool. So now I want to jump back to our collected tables because we need to understand who this person is. Yeah, so is this character... We know nothing about the character that's being added to the scene. This could be someone that knows Twinnrova, that wants to get their attention, recognizes them, says, hey, something like that. Or this could be something not so good that has to do with a letter. So I'm going to ask the question, is this person... Let's see, the more active answer would be someone threatening. The least active answer would be someone friendly. Let's ask, is this person friendly towards... Is this person unfriendly towards Twinnrova? To make the more active answer a yes. Okay, so I have no idea. I don't even know what the odds are. If you don't know what the odds are, you are supposed to go with 50-50. Chaos is at 6. It's a 65 that this percent chance that this person is unfriendly. 73 no. This is a friendly person. Okay, is this someone that we already know? Let's say that since we're in the housing area, that it's very likely that it's a neighbor that sees us. Yeah, so 85. And, ooh, we get a 004. Yes. So we definitely know the person already. It's not a new person. It's someone that we're actually very close with. So maybe there is some character that is friends with Twinnrova. That is actually really cool. Let's go down to our meeting elements table. So this is pretty cool. We can basically quickly generate a character from this table. Why don't we go ahead and... So this is someone that Twinnrova already knows, that notices Twinnrova. Actually, can we ask that? Does someone notice Twinnrova as he's leaving his house and come over to say hi? Just run up and catch up with him. We're going to say that is nearly certain that is what actually happens. And we get a 007. Again, first off, that's funny, 007. Again, that is an exceptional yes. So someone we're very familiar with, and yes, they definitely notice us as we're walking out of our house to go see the sage. Maybe it's someone that didn't know that we were back from the swamp yet, or that was waiting for us. Kind of interesting. Okay, we want to generate some information about the character. So we could roll on this. Okay, so we have the action meaning table. This is usually what we use for random events. We also have the description meaning table where we can describe people. Okay, and with these two tables, you can get most of the hard work done for most of your questions. But we actually have all of these other element meaning tables that are really useful. And we have like character descriptions, their actions, their appearance, their background, their conversations, their descriptors, their identity. So why don't we start off with this character's identity? We very much know who they are already. Okay. Twinnrova knows who they are, but we don't. So let's roll up who Twinnrova knows. We're going to roll 2 words off of the character identity table to give this new character an identity. First up, we get 12. This is a bureaucrat. Interesting. Wow, as far as I know, the only bureaucrat in Lumbridge would be the Duke, right? Oh, and we definitely know him, and he definitely was waiting outside the door, if that's the case. Okay, let's roll the second word and see if that gives us any alternative interpretation. 91. Subverter. Subverter, interesting. That makes me think that it's Sigmund. Okay, so wow, this is kind of a twist. So we have this note here. Let's see. While he tolerates the presence of an advisor, Sigmund, a known member of Humans Against Monsters. Interesting. Okay, so because that's what jumps to my mind, that is so strange. As Twinnrova walks out the door with his letter in hand to go see the Lumbridge Sage, Sigmund, the royal advisor, is standing there waiting for Twinnrova. Yes, he came to find Twinnrova. Why? Why did Sigmund come? Why is Sigmund... Is he outside the door? Let's ask, is Sigmund standing outside Twinnrova's home as Twinnrova exits, as if Sigmund was approaching to knock on his door? We're going to say that given the circumstances, this is likely. $30. Okay, so here's Sigmund. Is he flanked by Lumbridge guards? That seems nearly certain. Actually, if he didn't... Sigmund, he gives off this kind of cowardly vibe. So he probably is flanked by guards. At least has a guard with him. Probably a pair. We're going to say it's very likely that he's flanked by guards. 81, yes. Sigmund, flanked by guards, arrives at Twinnrova's house. Why is he there? I'm actually going to break out an additional resource to help us, basically to help us narrate or roleplay the behavior of Sigmund and other NPCs in the game. We could ask yes or no questions about what Sigmund does next, but that takes, quite a bit of kind of imagination, right? And it's a little more fun when it's randomized. So I'm going to break out another resource. This is a compilation of Mythic Magazine. We're going to head to an article called The Behavior Checks Simplified. And I love this because there's an older resource called Mythic Variations that introduced the behavior check, a question, a check that you can roll to determine an NPC's next action, or get inspiration for their next action, which is really cool. And then with this particular magazine article, which might have been Mythic Magazine like 1 or 2, I can't remember which. All of them are available on Drive-Thru RPG. Wordmill Games is excellent. Highly recommend all of their products, especially this one. Go check it out. But whatever the case, this is a more simplified version of the behavior check that is actually really nice. So basically, every time we meet a character, we're going to roll a disposition for them. And we might not do this for literally every character we meet, but at least every important character that we meet, that we want to have some kind of like social role play with, we are going to generate their disposition. So why don't we go ahead and mark Sigmund. Yeah, we're going to roll 2d10 to generate his disposition, and if it's 10 or less, he's going to be behaving passively, and if it's 11 or more, he's going to be behaving actively. And so, one, this is going to help us when we are imagining how he responds to the situation, right? If we imagine a more active and a more passive approach, this kind of split will help us to decide what kind of approach that they will take. But also, we're going to roll on this NPC action table, which is simplified, actually. There were 2 action tables in the original behavior check that's been simplified down into 1, compressed into 1, which is really cool. This is going to apply a +2 or a -2 modifier to the table. Right, we also have, let's see, we have like a context modifier. Is that what it's called? Yeah, so like whatever we're currently talking about, in addition to the randomness of the roll, right? So we're going to roll a 2d10. That's going to give us a number for passive or active. Based on what we're talking about at a given moment, we can think about whether the given character, whether the thing we're discussing will make them behave more passive or active. And if we think that, like, for instance, if we insult Sigmund's mother, then we're going to give him another +2 to his disposition score, and that could take him from passive to active. Like, it's possible that +2 could be the thing that causes his personality to shift from passive to active in that moment. So that's something to keep in mind. The 3 basic aspects here are a disposition score that gets rolled, so that you have a passive or active state, a context modifier that can modify your roll, and then repeated rolls on the action table to see what a character does in response to a particular event. And so, yeah, that is hopefully a good enough brief explanation. We will go ahead and dive into this. I'm going to roll my d10 twice, so we get a 5 and a 0. Is that a 10? Yes, so that would be a 10. So we have 15. So Sigmund is active. All right. And so that means he's going to get a +2 on the NPC action table. And we're going to say we don't know what the context is. We're not going to have any kind of context adjustment. We have no idea why he's here, what he's doing. So I think that Twinnrova is going to be surprised to see Sigmund, and we're going to let Sigmund act first. And we should keep in mind that we asked Mythic if this person was friendly or hostile or unfriendly, and we got an answer of friendly. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they're really friendly. They could just be behaving friendly, but whatever his first action is, Sigmund is not coming out immediately aggressive or hostile. That should not be his approach. I'm going to add a d10 to the mix so we can roll 2 d10s. This is going to be another 2d10 roll, all right, for his action. So let's go ahead and roll. We get an 11 + 2, which is give something. Interesting. So Sigmund arrives, okay, and wants to give us something. We also need to keep in mind that this is an interrupt scene, or this is not an interrupt scene. It's an altered scene. So maybe this is a brief encounter. It's feeling more like an interrupt than an altered at this point, which is okay. Is there a way that we could make this incorporate into like an altered scene? What if instead of just stopping? Okay, so we walk outside our house. We're walking towards the Lumbridge Sage, and Sigmund is there with his guards, and is like, Twinnrova, I've been looking for you. I've been meaning to give you something. Okay, so what is it that he wants to give us? Let's ask Mythic. Do we want to make a roll on the description table to describe what it is that he wants to give us? Yeah, let's try this table out. Let's do a description meaning table roll and just see what we come up with. So he wants to give us something. Foolishly 16. Foolishly cute. Strange. What could he want? Could cute in this case be like sarcastic? Like, maybe this means like foolishly sarcastic, like he's giving us something that seems like an opportunity. This is a person in power. The reason he would be coming in and talking to Twinnrova, who's a minor, is probably if he wanted something from him that's not going to be good for him, but that he wants to come across as an opportunity. Sigmund seems like that kind of person. Maybe to make this an altered scene, Sigmund says, I've been meaning to talk with you. Where are you heading? And Twinnrova says, well, I was just heading to the castle. And nervous, of course, and Sigmund says, let's walk and talk. And as he's walking, does he hand Twinnrova a letter, second letter, I know, very original, right? That basically is an invitation to a job. I'm going to say that this is very likely. We're at a chaos of 6. It seems like what's going on. Okay, 40, so that is the case. So Sigmund is here with a job for Twinnrova. He's probably selected because he's a good miner. His mining skill is 6, and he's in the town of Lumbridge. So he probably is a known for being a good miner. Also, if he's mining in the swamp, he's obviously okay with dangerous situations. So maybe Sigmund is here offering for Twinnrova to go somewhere for another job. He could be offering for Twinnrova. Okay, is the job related to mining? We're going to say that this is also very likely. We're actually going to say it's nearly certain. I don't know why else. Ooh, it could be archaeology. We have an archaeology stat. Do the archaeologists in Varrock need somebody? And Sigmund is here trying to recruit for them. There's a lot of possibilities here. I'm going to say that it's very likely that this job is directly related to mining as opposed to like archaeology or dungeoneering. Very likely or just likely? We're going to make it very likely. Okay, 85. And we get a 99. That is an exceptional no. Yeah. This is definitely not related to mining at all. A 99 roll? Are you kidding me? Yeah, if the chaos factor was higher, that would be a double. It'd have to be very high. You'd have to have a wild 9 chaos factor. But that, wow. Okay, so this is definitely not a mining job. And this is why it's cute that he's offering this. Because it's like an opportunity, but it's not really an opportunity. Or it is, but it'll be a dangerous one. So the two things that come to mind are Daemonheim. We got an exceptional no, so this is something dangerous. Archaeology is an option, and it's definitely not mining, and it definitely takes you into some crazy places, but it's not as dangerous. Do they need miners in Daemonheim? That's pretty far away. So if you're not a RuneScape player and you're curious as to what these things are, archaeology is a skill where basically you go around the world looking for ancient relics and artifacts. There could be a plot, and they could need miners to go join the archaeology venture, right? Yeah, there could be some intrigue or scheming there. Daemonheim is a dungeon in the wilderness. It's this crazy, icy dungeon that is very deep. It's randomly generated when you play the video game. And, groups of people go, and it's kind of cool, honestly. It's almost like Diablo in RuneScape, but it's this crazy frozen dungeon deep in the wilderness. And skillers can go into the dungeon and use their skills while they're clearing the dungeon, so it could be interesting to get a request to go to Daemonheim. It also could be a request for something. Oh, it's not mining. I was going to say it could be a request to go to like the Dwarven Mine, which has like scorpions and all kinds of crazy stuff. That would be more within the scope of like the more immediate game world. I'm just brainstorming. Let's actually look at RuneScape Kingdoms. Let's go back to Welcome to Gielinor, right? Which is where we're at. And let's see if there's an entry for the dig site or for Daemonheim. I'm sure there are. Okay, the Varrock Museum. Varrock Sewers. Wizard's Tower, Draenor, the dig site. Of course, even the greatest of cities, kingdoms, and empires fall eventually. Such was the case with Saranthium. Once a great hub of Gielinor, established by the followers of Saradomin, Saranthium itself was built over the ruins of Siniston. These layers of history serve as a natural lure to scholars from throughout the continent, all of whom seek to uncover more about the cities and their eventual collapse. A number of fascinating artifacts have already been discovered here, including one seeming to bear some form of prophecy regarding Zeros and Zamorak. I remain hopeful there is much more to be revealed by those archaeologists fortunate enough to explore the ruins. So the dig site is a possibility. Could be being requested to go to the dig site. Let's see. Paterdomus. Ooh, Mauritania. Are there mines in Mauritania? Archaeology? Dungeoneering is the other skill, right? We said it's definitely not mining, though. Exceptional no to the task, to the job having to do with mining. So Daemonheim still seems like the most likely candidate. at this point. The dig site is possible. Let's see if there's anything about... And here you can kind of get a overview of what's available in the book. Yeah, Asgarnia has some really cool stuff. Kandarin, which just got a graphical update in RuneScape 3, if you're playing that. All kinds of good stuff. Yanil, wow. They've got a lot of the game world. Tiranuin, not sure how to pronounce that. This is the Elven area. That is sick. Al-Kharid. Now, Al-Kharid, is there anything in the desert that we could be being sent to do? I feel like this is like a letter just to take us somewhere. Where in the world are we going to go exploring if we accept this offer? Mauritania is a scary, like, vampire-infested realm. There's vampires versus werewolves over here. And it's honestly a really cool and crazy area, but very scary. Okay, there's the Fremnik provinces. That's kind of on the edge of the world. It seems unlikely that Sigmund would be worried about that at all. But there is a Daemonheim recruiter in Lumbridge, so it's kind of making the most sense that we have Daemonheim. Varlamore, Karamja, Great Corin, the Wushenko Isles. Wow, we actually don't have Daemonheim mentioned at all in the core rulebook. Wow, let's go to the wilderness and see actually if it's mentioned in the wilderness. Okay, let's go to the wilderness description. What was it like here? It's cool because I'm learning this as you're learning it as well. Okay, because I've not read the whole book yet. The wilderness. The name is almost description enough. A wasteland covering much of northeastern Gielinor. Little grows there, and the little that does is coarse and scarcely edible. The water is tainted. Even the air tastes of old blood and old bitterness. In the distant past, the wilderness was an expanse of rich and fertile land. It was once the domain of Zeros, who conquered it and settled it, building huge cities as part of his fledgling empire. The land was named Farinthri, and for centuries it flourished, until the onset of the God Wars. As the forces of Zamorak raged across the land, the great cities of Farinthri fell one by one, burned by the magic and fury of the invading armies. One by one, each of Farinthri's major metropolises fell, save for Gorok, though the city soon became so cold as to be uninhabitable. As the God Wars raged, Farinthri's scars grew ever deeper and ever more permanent. Even after Guthix finally brought the wars to their end and introduced the Edicts of Guthix to prevent the gods from directly interacting with the world again, it became clear the place was beyond saving. It remains a permanent testament to the savagery of the God Wars and of all that was lost as a consequence. Today the wilderness is usually avoided by all those who wish to avoid quick and painful deaths. Its reputation is a dark one, and even the youngest child can whisper tales of the fates of fools drawn by the lure of lost wealth concealed within the wilderness. Such stories are repeated everywhere, drawing adventurers, treasure hunters, and many others to the desolate expanse. Very few return, and none do so unscathed. It is not solely those seeking wealth and glory who try to tame the wilderness. Numerous attempts at recolonization have been launched down the centuries. Ooh, that's interesting. That could be food for this request by Sigmund. Some even appeared to be working for a time, with one city being constructed on top of the ruins of Dariak, one of Farinthri's great cities. It lasted only a few scant years before it was swallowed up by the ravaged land. Now the wilderness is home only to criminals, roving bands of monsters always on the hunt for prey, and worse. Dragons soar above the wilderness, content in the knowledge that, without the organized military resistance available to kingdoms like Kandarin, there is almost nothing below more deadly than them. For the protection of the neighboring kingdoms, the wilderness is surrounded by a vast wall, demarcating the boundaries of civilization. Those crossing the wall do so knowing the brutal, unyielding place they enter. In the wilderness, you must be prepared to fight at all times, always carrying a blade or ready to cast a spell. Each second counts towards your chances of survival. But for those adventurers prepared to venture into that land of blasted earth, there is much to find and much in need of doing. While most of the inhabitants of the wilderness are monsters, forced to subsist here, far from the tender prey of the central kingdoms to the south, the forbidding reputation of the place also makes it an attractive spot for Zamorakians to set up encampments, slowly developing their plots against the lands from which they find themselves driven. Bandits and dark warriors stalk the wasteland, making occasional forays into the lands beyond the wall to raid and pillage, or to kidnap those they consider vital to their plans. Many experts in magical lore or the history of the arcane vanish from their homes, with their kidnappers' tracks leading into the wilderness. None are entirely sure what truly occurs in the wilderness beyond violence, but it is just possible there truly is ancient treasure to be found for those prepared to withstand the dangers of the place. It's also possible some dark plot waxes in the ruins of a forsaken nation. Is anyone brave enough to find out? Wow. Now that is really epic. I was wondering if Daemonheim would be mentioned in the wilderness's description because Daemonheim is in the wilderness, but it's apparent that it's not. Daemonheim is not in the core game, which is really interesting, and I imagine that there's room for Steamforged to continue making board game expansions and to potentially expand the core rulebook with additional books, right? Could be in their future, and if so, I bet Daemonheim would be a really awesome resource, especially if they had a way to like randomly generate dungeon levels baked in. That would be really sick. But what this tells me is that if we kind of scope back into the current situation where Sigmund is offering us a job to go somewhere and do something, right, that's going to be dangerous and that's not related to mining, it's not Daemonheim. And of course we can go to places that don't exist in the core rulebook, but I think it makes the most sense to start off in places that are described here, just so that we can explore the world as it's given here first, rather than immediately, kind of stretching past its borders when there's already a huge amount of space to explore and play inside this game book. So it's possible that there could be an archaeological expedition into the wilderness, that they're looking for people to join and be a part of, and that someone with a mining background would be useful for. I don't know, we can ask, is this a foray into the wilderness that's being suggested? I don't know. That seems like it could be it. Man, I think it's the most plausible explanation. No one wants to go into the wilderness. And so I love that my interpretation of the word cute is that we're being sent into the wilderness. Why don't we make it fair? Let's call it 50-50 and let fate decide. Is Sigmund recruiting for an archaeological expedition into the wilderness? Let's give it a roll. That is a 50. That is a yes. So Sigmund expresses to us that he's been looking for us. He wanted to give us this invitation that could be a great opportunity to join an archaeological expedition that will be searching for relics of like Zeros, maybe. Maybe it's an archaeological expedition hunting for relics of the Zerosian Empire, and they requested for skilled miners to join the expedition because there aren't many people in the world that have archaeological skill, right? Maybe it's a smaller group of people that work with archaeology, and so they really want... they need people. Basically, they need people. Sigmund is probably not going to express it like that. He's probably not going to say, oh, we can't find anybody that has archaeological skill, so we need miners instead. That's probably not how he's saying it, but he does basically... He's basically saying that they're looking for miners to join the archaeological expedition. And he gives it to us, and he really hopes that we'll consider it. Maybe he gets some kind of positive kickback if we sign up, if we join. So I think on his first interaction, he's just telling us about the opportunity and trying to hype it up. And Twinnrova is going to probably ask, well, where is it? Where would I, what would I travel to the expedition? Where are they leaving from and where are they going? And Sigmund explains that the expeditionary party is to be assembled in Varrock and will be performing their expedition in the wilderness. And at this point, Twinnrova might be afraid, right? He might be scared of this. Let's see, we have a strength and agility and an intellect. I was going to, I don't know, maybe do a test or trying to think about how to get Twinnrova's response. Is Twinnrova immediately just like concerned about this request? I'm going to say it's very likely that he's immediately nervous, shocked. The wilderness probably brings up like apprehension or tension in people. They know that it's a violent place and a dangerous place. So we're going to say it's very likely that this is shocking to Twinnrova. And this is just to get some like of his personality showing. 55. So that is another random event that's within the chaos factor. Yes, Twinnrova is shocked to be receiving this request. We need to roll for another random event. Okay, let's go ahead and see what's happening. So we're heading to the Lumbridge Sage, right, to talk about this riddle that we received. And now we're being asked to go to the wilderness by Sigmund. And then something else happens. What could happen? 21. This is an NPC action. An NPC takes an action. Okay. And I think for the sake of this random event, we really need to include Sigmund. Usually you don't... So traditionally you add characters at the end of a scene, but you can add characters to your list optionally as you go. I'm going to choose 5-6 to add Sigmund, advisor to Duke Horatio of Lumbridge, to our character list. And yeah, we need to pick which NPC takes the action. So we're going to roll a d6. We get a 1. That is the anonymous sender of the letter. So it didn't matter. Fate was going to choose an action that the sender of the letter takes right now. Interesting. Let's see what the action is. Wow, this is quite intriguing already. 15. Break. $38. Break health. Break health. What? So the sender of the letter, the person that sent us the letter anonymously, break of health, breaks our health. Does the letter affect us somehow? A break of health. I'm thinking maybe the letter... Does the letter start to, like, poison us or something? Are we being attacked by the letter? And I'm going to have to ask some fate questions here. But what question do we ask? Break of health from the sender of the letter. What if we split it up? And don't think break of health or break health. Okay, let's think break. What could the sender of the letter break right now? They could break their cover. If it was Sigmund, then break could be like he's breaking his cover. That could be a random action to say that not only did he is he wanting to send him to the wilderness, but he's the one that sent the letter. That seems not very likely. Because why would Sigmund go through that effort? Health. What does the letter have to do with your health? The letter is a riddle that's telling us about a power that we must overthrow. My thought about health was that maybe the letter is somehow poisoning us, or maybe there's something magical about it. Maybe it is draining our health. Would that make sense? Okay, so while this is confusing, fortunately we don't have to figure this out all on our own. We can use the fate chart to help us understand what's going on. So somehow the sender of the letter is breaking our health, maybe with the letter. So is the letter in some way magical? And I'm going to say that this is very likely given the random events rolls on the action meeting table. So that's an 85. 86, no, the letter itself is not magical. Okay, so the letter is not magical. Is it venomous? I was thinking magical like it could be zapping our strength, but maybe it's not magical. Why would the letter be harmful to us? But let's just ask. Okay, let's say, is the letter poisonous? I'm going to say that it's very unlikely that the letter is written in poison, because why would the sender send the riddle asking for our help and then try to poison us? That doesn't make sense unless it came to us inadvertently. We're the wrong person and it knows who opened it. But that doesn't seem likely either, especially if it's not magical. So we're going to say it's very unlikely. Roll this at a 35 and we get a 54. So no, the letter is not poisonous. So this might, there's also the I don't know rule that I'm contemplating. So basically, if you don't understand, if nothing immediately comes to mind that could answer your question pretty quickly, you're supposed to just say, I don't know, throw it out the window and keep moving on. I'll give it another second to think. Health in the letter. It's not harming us with poison. It's not magical. It's just a letter. So break and health. And the break is like taking a break. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess we'll just throw that one out the window. Okay, yeah. Well, I'm going to call the I don't know rule there. And I think that's not always satisfying, but I think it's really important so that you don't slow up your progress. The game is supposed to be quick, right? Like you ask questions, you get quick answers, random events, you want something surprising, aha, to happen next. You don't want to stall your campaign with questions that you can't answer. You don't want to spend so much time deliberating that you don't know where to go with it. So if the letter's not poisonous and it's not magical, which were my two thoughts, then we're going to say, I don't know, no random event happens. Instead, we are still walking alongside Sigmund, the advisor, who is pitching for us to basically join an archaeological expedition party into the wilderness looking for Zarosian relics. And that he's probably pitching that it would be financially worthwhile for us to do so. So Twinnrova, thinking about this, maybe he knows that Reldo, the librarian, is in Varrock. Does he know there's a library in Varrock? He probably does. Let's see, is Twinnrova aware of the existence of a library in Varrock? We're going to say this is nearly certain. Chaos is at 6. We need to roll under 90. And we get a 53. Yes, he's aware that there's a library. Would Twinnrova want to take the opportunity to go to Varrock to go to the library and talk to Reldo in case Reldo can help crack his riddle? I don't know that Twinnrova would immediately think of that. We can think of that, but would he think of that? Going to Varrock. Would he want to take advantage of this so that he could have a reason to go to Varrock? Let's say that for the sake of the series, moving forward. We're just going to say it's very likely. If this is a no, it's going to keep the two avenues independent. Let's say it's very likely he sees this opportunity. And we get a 004. Absolute exceptional yes. So Twinnrova immediately sees the opportunity to travel to Varrock, make money, and to learn more about the mysterious letter. So does he agree right away? I guess let's ask Sigmund. Okay, say that I'm interested. What do I do next? Do I just head to Varrock, right? So, okay, I'm interested. It sounds intriguing. What's next for me? Let's ask Sigmund. So we're going to roll on the NPC action table. Yeah, we'll do 2d10. We get a 10. He's going to continue. So we maintain. Oh, is that a 6? That's a 7. Acts out of our interest. Interesting. It's going to change the current context. Act out of our interest. So we were discussing the job, and he's going to act out of interest for a second. He's going to stop. Okay, does he stop noticing that we're interested and want to make sure that we really know what we're getting ourselves into before we go? I'm going to say that that is very likely. Odds are, chaos is at 6 to odds are 85%. That is a 49. So yes. So Sigmund pauses, stops us, and says, son, I just want you to understand that the wilderness is a dangerous place and that this is an excellent opportunity for you, but I want to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into. And Twinnrova is going to contemplate, solemnly reflect, and basically say that he understands the danger that is going to be inherent to this, that he will be incredibly cautious, and he will reserve a final judgment until all of the details are made clear, but that he is interested and he's willing to travel to Varrock, to the group, to the expeditionary party, and to see what the plan is and to judge, further whether he'll go on. But he is interested and he wants to have the opportunity. And so, with that response, what does Sigmund do next? Oh, wrong. It's 2d10. So we have a 6 and a 6. Ooh, it knocks the other one, so that is an 8. So he's going to continue -2. So his disposition decreases by 2, but he continues. Okay, so I'm basically going to interpret this as him. Is he continuing to express how dangerous it is? We're still talking about the job. I'm going to interpret this as, okay, he basically hands us. Okay, so if we look at the letter that he gave us, it's not really a letter. It's a letter of recommendation, right? So someone has given maybe like the Lumbridge government the request to recruit individuals for an expedition. Maybe this was sent by King Roald of Varrock, and in fact, is King Roald's name on the sheet? Does he have a signatory on it? We're going to say that it is nearly certain. That is a 90% chance. Okay, exceptional yes. So yes, King Roald, the Duke of Lumbridge, Sigmund as his advisor. They're all basically, the government is looking for people to support this contract expedition into the wilderness. And so it's got everyone's name except for Twinnrova. So Twinnrova is going to sign it. Maybe Sigmund has a feather, right? Quill with ink that we can sign the parchment on. Sigmund's going to sign it knowing that we're sure. We're going to sign it knowing that we're sure. And Sigmund says to take this with you to Varrock and meet with, we need a name. We need to meet with someone in Varrock. Fortunately, there is an elements meaning table that we can use for this. We have a character name, I believe. Or just a name. It doesn't have to be a character name. Locations, names. All right, this is a fun one. Instead of rolling 2, you roll 1 at a time until you get a name, and I think that is kind of funny. Okay, so let's take note here. Yeah, this is it. So D100 on the names table. 006, that is an animal. Okay. It immediately makes me think of Beraic, right? Beraic is someone in Varrock, but I don't think he has anything to do with archaeology. So we'll roll again. We're going to introduce a character that's not already known in RuneScape. 66. So an animal and orn, like Ramorn or Bearorn, Bayorn. Bayorn? Bjorn. There we go. We need to meet Bjorn, and that is really how this table works, by the way. We need to meet Bjorn and Varrock, who's leading the expedition. Okay. So Sigmund intercepts Twinnrova with a letter explaining, why don't we say with a letter of recommendation for a job on an archaeological expedition to the wilderness. Twinnrova should speak with Bjorn in Varrock to join the expedition. Perfect. So that is like a quest. It's like if we were playing RuneScape and we just picked up a quest from Sigmund. So we have a quest started. That is the thread. It'll be a new thread. So why don't we add this thread to the thread list? That is find Bjorn in Varrock to discuss the expedition into the wilderness. As a new thread for us. Should the wilderness be capitalized like it's a proper noun? Yeah, we'll use capital W for now on the wilderness. Yeah, that is cool. That is a turn of events that I was not expecting. All right, so with that, Sigmund has plenty of other things to be doing with his day, so he bids us farewell, and as he does so, we're almost there to Lumbridge Castle. So we arrive at the Lumbridge Sage, which is the whole point of the scene. That was just really a side, kind of like a side quest on the way to the Sage. We have the letter of recommendation in our inventory now. We should actually add that to our inventory. So we have letter of recommendation, and we also have letter with a riddle. Letter with a riddle. We'll call it that in our inventory. Yeah, that is pretty cool. So out of our 28 slots, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slots filled. We need to remember this this kind of thing as we're playing. Okay, so we arrive at the castle, right? And the Lumbridge Sage is usually standing out front. Maybe there's some like little raised platform, right? Like a stage near the castle, outside the castle, where he usually is set up and quote performing, right, for people that pass by. Maybe he's got like a bucket where people donate coins or something. Yeah, is the Sage still there today? And we're going to say that it's likely that he's still there. I don't think it's late yet. Okay, 46, so he is there. The Lumbridge Sage is talking, and does he have a crowd of people in front of him? It's busy, so, the town of Lumbridge. So let's say once again that it's likely. Let's say it's likely that he has a group of people around him. Ooh, 000. Is that another? Okay, that is 0. I don't know if that counts as a random event or not. Does that count as 10? I think it counts as 0. I think that's another random event. Wow, why do we keep rolling doubles? I actually need, if you're a Mythic aficionado watching this and you see this random event happen again, yeah, comment down below if you think a 0 like this is always a random event, because that's how I think I'm going to interpret this. Exceptionally, yes, there is a throng of people around the Lumbridge Sage as we approach. It is very busy, very busy. It's going to be hard to talk to him, and then something random happens. Maybe this is another chance for an actual random event to occur, since we had our I don't know rule earlier. Let's roll an event on the event focus table. We get a 65. So this is going to be move away from a thread. No, this is going to make it harder. Oh my gosh. And we could randomly choose, but like, it makes the most sense if it's the discover who sent the letter and why. We just got the letter about the expedition to the wilderness. And really, you normally wouldn't add it until after the scene ends anyway. So it doesn't make sense for there already to be something that moves us away from the thread. Unless it's something physical. So it's possible, like something that would prevent us from traveling, that we learn when we get to the castle. So we can still make it random. Okay, let's randomly roll for a thread. We're going to roll a d4 to pick the thread. And we get a 1. Discover who sent the letter and why. We're going to move away from a thread. You want a new challenge for your PC to face, right? For your character to face. Okay, so we're going to roll in the action event table to see what is the random event that moves us away from that thread. Wow, what an exciting session. A lot of randomness has happened to kind of create the story. Okay, 94. Travel, that's what I was thinking. Before travel, 78. Project. Travel project. Move away from being able to discover who sent the letter and why because of a travel project. What if the normal road to... Okay, I got it. So this is going to affect both threads, actually, and it's kind of what I was thinking before. So we reach Lumbridge Castle, and in front of the castle is this like wooden platform, right? I'm going to say that the castle has all of these like colorful triangle like banners kind of spread everywhere to make it look like medieval fanfare around the castle, just because it looks cool. So imagine it's really busy. There's people everywhere. There is a throng of people surrounding the Lumbridge Sage. So it's very hard to even get close, let alone to be able to talk to the sage, because so many people are listening to his story. And while there, do we hear it from people passing by? Let's see. Do we hear the news of this random event from people having conversation about it? I'm going to say that it's nearly certain because of what it is, but I'm just going to roll this before I explain. Yeah, 53, that's a yes. Okay, so people are standing around and actually kind of frustrated because the road through Lumbridge to the north is being blocked, right? There's a project on the road. So this is just like in real life, when the road is blocked for some reason. Why don't we say that the road is shut down? The people say that there's a project happening on the road from Lumbridge to Varrock. So temporarily, you're not able to directly travel from Lumbridge to Varrock via the road. However, you could go around. You could try to go through anyway, but like wagons and carts and all of that are not able to make it to Varrock right now. We want to go to Varrock. Interesting. Is it a travel project is what we got? So yeah, there's some kind of project on the road. What would they be doing in medieval times? I guess, we don't even have to question it. There's road work going on, and so the road is not available for carts. So it's going to hinder us because we couldn't ride to Varrock, but we could walk there. That's still a possibility. Okay, quite interesting. So here we are at the Lumbridge Sage. We realize that it's going to be difficult to travel to Varrock by road because of something that's going on, some kind of project on the road. We don't really know a lot about it. Would it be useful to learn more about what is causing the blockage on the road? I mean, this could be another quest for us. There could be something more interesting than just road work causing the block. So it's something we want to look into. We could look, our character is always wanting to make the world a better place. So he might be interested in... Our character might just be like hungry for quests. They might love having a million different threads and always trying to help everyone all the time because of our motivation, right? Helping people. You never stop trying to make things better. So maybe our character actually wants to travel to... Maybe our character actually wants to travel to the block in the road to see what's going on. It's on the way to Varrock anyway, and to see if it's really a road project, if there's anything he can do to help get progress underway. I don't know. Maybe we should learn more. Maybe, okay, so there's a group of people near us that are talking about it. Maybe we ask them, hey, what is this about a project? What's going on? Does this random group of people next to me discussing it, do they know what's happening? Do they really know, or do they have an answer for us? I'm going to say that it's likely they have an answer because people like to think that they know, right? So, I don't know. They probably at least have a rumor to tell us. We get a 58. That is a yes. So they have an answer for us. They say, okay, so do they say that it is literally road work? Let's make this, because that's what we said, it's likely, okay? Do they say that it is literally the government is working on the road? Yes, okay. Exceptional, yes. They're working on the road. Maybe they're trying to expand it for carriages, for more carriages. That's kind of funny. Why wouldn't they let people go by, though? Interesting. So somewhere on the road is blocked for them to... Does it make sense for them to be blocking the road for expanding it, or is there something else that they want to do or build on the road? That is a question. So it's definitely road work. Exceptional yes to a road project. Are they trying to make the road from Varrock to Lumbridge wider? I don't know. For some reason, that doesn't seem likely to me like a good enough reason to shut down the road. But I don't know what else they would be doing. So I guess we'll call it 50-50, and the chaos is 6. 009. Exceptional yes. They're attempting to widen the road. There's a group of people working on the road trying to widen it all the way from Varrock to Lumbridge. And so even for, let's say, for 2 or 3 days, your typical journey from Lumbridge to Varrock is going to be slowed down dramatically because you can't ride by cart to get there, which would be typical. You're going to have to walk, and even so, you're going to have to go around the road work. That is quite interesting. So that doesn't really say quest to me. It just says progress. It's kind of an interesting side note. Okay, so that's interesting to say the least. We should have like a build-up of resources, right? Like maybe, trade is not getting back and forth from Varrock to Mistlin as quickly for a few days, so people might get antsy without some of the resources that they're used to having or dealing with. This is quite interesting. But okay, so we should continue pressing on towards the Sage. So the Sage is surrounded by a group of people, and we'd really like to get in closer to him. So how hard would it be to press through the people? Should that be a test of our character? Is it that challenging that we want to make it a test? We'd have like an agility check or a strength check. Do we push through the crowd? Is there a skill that would go along with this? Like, thieving, again, might be maneuvering in and out of people. Thieving actually seems like it could be a useful skill. Why don't we say it's an agility thieving check to see if we can kind of maneuver our way through the throng peacefully, right? Just kind of work our way through the crowd. That is, oh, agility. Yeah, I was thinking, oh, we used intellect earlier for the riddle, so did we need to have a plus sign by intellect? But no, we don't actually directly increase our attributes at the end of a session. We increase our skills. Okay. So yeah, we're going to use agility thieving to try to work our way through the crowd. That's going to be a 3d6. We need to roll a 4 or lower to get up to the front of the Lumbridge stage. And yeah, we definitely fail. And this should happen quite a bit. We're going to end up failing fairly often early on in the campaign because our character is so weak sauce at everything. Hopefully you can see the numbers. I hope you can read those numbers, that they're not just so blurry that you can't read them. Yeah, I'll play with this and see about making this work. Yeah, hopefully you can read those numbers. But so we fail. We cannot push through the throng. There's just too many people, and we are going to have to wait. So do we want to sit around and wait for the crowd to dwindle down? Yeah, so we're going to... It's really important, so we're going to listen. We're actually going to listen to the Lumbridge Sage as he's speaking. What is he speaking about? That is an excellent question. We can make a detail check, right? We can ask fate questions. How do we want to determine this answer, what he's talking about? Obviously, he's talking about the history of Lumbridge. Is he talking about the town itself right now? Let's say it's very likely. Just directly about Lumbridge. Okay. We get a 46. Yes, he is talking about the history of the town of Lumbridge. Is there anything interesting that he says that we don't already know? Let's call it a 50-50. Is there anything pertinent that, like, catches our interest as we're listening? 69. That is a no. Okay, so the sage is telling his stories. People are passing by. It starts to get later. The crowd starts to get lower and lesser, and by the end of the day, is there anything else that we want to go do while we're in Lumbridge as this is happening? Let's think about, do we have ores from the mine that we can sell? We shouldn't start the game with money, but we did just come back from the swamp. We can assume that it was a failed trip, I guess. Maybe our character was even frustrated and down on himself for not having any ores, right, from the trip. And so maybe that's why he was more likely to say yes to the expedition to the wilderness, right? It's very possible that that's why that ended up happening. Interesting. So we don't have ores to sell if that's the case. What else would we do around the castle? No, I guess we just stand and wait. We wait and listen. And the consequence of failure is basically that instead of immediately getting on with it and being able to travel, the night starts to dwindle away. And as it gets later, the number of people reduces until Twinnrova can finally make his way up to the front and catch the sage. And basically say, hey, hello, I have a question for you whenever you're done that I could use your specific help with. And let's go ahead and roll disposition for the Lumbridge Sage. Okay, so Lumbridge Sage disposition is 2d10. That's going to be 9 and 8, 17. Very active. So he's very actively engaged with his performance, right? He's up on a high of adrenaline with such a large influx today. Maybe it's so busy because there's less travel, so people not knowing what to do, they're watching his performance on the stage, telling the history of how Lumbridge came to be, and his action is going to be, we'll do a 2d10 for his behavior, a 9, Okay, continues. He doesn't have a continues, so this is going to be a context action. So, okay, actually, we'll say he continues by saying, okay, like he's interested, but he needs to finish his performance for the day, whatever. So, instead of immediately talking to us, we still stand and wait, but he continues to glance in our direction because he's intrigued. He's kind of before he's still active, right? He's still very expressively performing for the group of people around him and answering their questions and talking about the history of the town. But he's glancing in our direction regularly because his interest has been piqued. And so finally we come to a point where there aren't very many people anymore. He steps off of the stage and approaches us and says, "Okay, you've waited this long. Obviously, this is important. What is your question?" And Twinnrova is going to ask, "Is there any way that we could discuss this somewhere not in the open?" And the Lumbridge Sage, you know, he gives Twinnrova a look. He's confused, like, what does Twinnrova want to talk to me about that he's not willing to talk about to discuss in the open? Yeah, that makes him wary. So let's roll for his response to that request. And his response is oh my gosh, 18. Cause harm? No way. Changes the current context. Causes harm. We're going to get attacked by the Lumbridge Sage, like literally? Is that... The NPC tries to hurt the PC. Like the other results in this range on the NPC action table, this action should change the context. If there's more than one character, then the NPC either hurts the character they're most directly... Yeah, so it's us. The harm may be obvious. The dragon fights. If there is no logical, quick-to-determine interpretation, then roll on the action meaning tables for inspiration or ask a fate question. This doesn't necessarily mean that the harm caused is physical. Maybe the NPC says something cruel to the player character. Maybe they left a nasty note. Maybe they just shot the PC a dirty look. Let the context and the disposition guide you. So his disposition is very high. So maybe the sage turns angry and says something along the lines of, how dare you insult me by suggesting that I take part in something secret, right? I don't know exactly how he would say it, but the sage is upset, angry, and makes some remark about, they're not going to do their dealings behind closed doors. They don't know what I'm after, but whatever it is, they can ask in person or not at all, or out in the open or not at all. So they're angry, right? Yikes, that is not what I was expecting. And maybe they make a dig at Twinnrova as they're saying it. So Twinnrova's upset. Maybe shocked at the response, didn't expect that response, and stammers something about a letter with a riddle and wanting to help. Interesting. Stammers something about a riddle and wanting to give the sage's advice and help on breaking the riddle. But he says it nervously, but the sage picks up on it. And I want to see, is there any kind of influence, social influence skill that we have in RuneScape Kingdoms? So intellect is probably persuasion. Which skill is persuasion? Is it thieving again? Wow, what a versatile skill. I don't think there's any other skill that has to do with persuading someone. Yeah, thieving is going to be a must-have. Highly recommend increasing thieving. Maybe I'm just interpreting this incorrectly, but I feel like, once again, influencing someone like that is kind of like thieving is the most relatable skill. Okay, so we're going to make a thieving check to see if we can influence the social reaction here. Okay, so let's go to Twinnrova. Our intellect is 3 and our thieving is 1, right? So this is going to be a thieving check. We need to roll a 4 on 3d6. We failed every skill test so far, but hey, this could be our first success. And we get a 5, 6, 7, 8. So another failure. Is that right? Either way, the 2, and the 1 would also be a failure. So, yeah, so we failed to influence the roll. If you win at a social kind of persuasion check like this in Mythic, you get to influence the outcome of the next roll. But failing doesn't mean that the worst possible scenario happens. It just means that we don't get to control how the narrative goes forward. So let's see what the Lumbridge Sage's response is to us. I think it's out of the question that he would have physically assaulted us or tried to actually harm us just for asking to have a conversation, out of earshot. But in saying that we just wanted his help by solving a riddle, let's see how he responds to that. Because I think that he would be intrigued and maybe like, yeah, perfect, an 8. This is a continues -2. The character's action is within the current context, which is anger over the wanting to discuss something in private. His disposition is actually going to decrease by 2, which is useful for us. We need him to chill out if possible. Down to 15. And so continues. So he basically is still frustrated, but he's frustrated by the suggestion that we go meet privately about this matter. Maybe he says something along the lines of, well, you should have said that in the first place. And you can tell that he's still keeping up the agitated appearance, but he's not quite as angry as he was before because his interest has been piqued. I'm going to say that the sage says, you should have mentioned that before. Give it here. And so does Twinnrova hand the sage the letter? I'm going to say that he does because he wants the help. So he pulls the letter out of his pocket, hands it to the sage, and the sage begins to look at the riddle. Now, obviously, the sage is going to understand the implication of the letter. But does he know what it means? And do we get to know that he knows what it means? I don't know that we should actually answer that. I think we might need to make another skill check to see what he does. Okay, so let's make another skill roll on the action table. Not a skill roll, a behavior check. And 3 talks exposition. That changes the current context after reading that. That makes a lot of sense. Let's describe what he's talking about. Let's go to the description meaning table to get an idea of what he says. Actually, is the first thing that comes out of his mouth, we can't ask this, is the first thing that the sage tells us immediately about the subject of the riddle, the power? Is he speaking about the power to be overthrown with the first words that come out of his mouth? And that could be a 50-50. It also could be unlikely because what are the odds that he immediately knows? It's the Lumbridge Sage, so he knows a lot about Lumbridge. So it depends on if the riddle is referring to something within his realm of knowledge. So let's go ahead and say it's unlikely that the sage immediately knows who this riddle is speaking about or what power that this riddle is speaking about. It might even be very unlikely that he automatically knows. Yeah, let's say it's very unlikely that he can immediately solve this riddle just by glancing at it. He's had all of, 2 seconds to figure this out. Let's go ahead and give this a roll. Our target for very unlikely was 35, and we rolled a 007. Exceptional, yes. He does, in fact, know. The first thing that he speaks is about the subject of the riddle. And let's describe the subject. Let's get 2 description words. So 6 Bleakly. 3. Artificial. Bleakly. Artificial. So this power that he's going to speak of, bleak makes me think dangerous, which makes sense. So bleak makes me think this is a villain, right? Someone evil. And artificial makes me think... Artificial actually makes me think like trying to pass as human. And this very easily points to a classic villain in RuneScape lore. The Lumbridge Sage glances up at Twinnrova and says... What does he say? He's speaking about the... He's speaking of the... We already determined that he's going to say something about the subject. The sage says, does this letter... No, it can't. Does this speak of... Draenor? Draenor. Who is Draenor? Well, Twinnrova has undoubtedly heard the rumor, the legends of Draenor. But for those of you who have not, let's go back up to our Misthalin section of the lore book, the chapter on lore. We'll have this load. Alcarid, so we're close. The Crydian Desert. Oh, we actually have to go up quite a ways to reach Misthalin. So let's guess about 17. Yeah, it's interesting that these PDF pages take so long to load over and over again. Okay, above is Garnia. Here is Draenor. All right. Once terrorized by the dreaded vampire, Count Draenor, Draenor Village is now free of that pernicious influence. These days, it is best known for its market. Its toy shop is, in particular, renowned throughout Misthalin, and its jailhouse, ruled over by the redoubtable Lady Kelly. Indeed, Draenor Village is home to a great many interesting personages, far more than one might expect of such a small place with such a dark history. But perhaps it is the place's reputation for darkness attracting those with power of their own. Aggie the Witch, a renowned wielder of magic, owns and operates a dye shop to the west of the village. For those prepared to pay, she can manufacture dyes of the most astonishing hues. To those who attempt to cheat her, let's just say she'll get her money, one way or another. Despite Count Draenor's removal from Draenor Manor at the point of a stake, his influence still lingers. Ooh, is that a reference to the player from Vampire Slayer? I can't remember, when you take on the Vampire Slayer quest in the video games, are you the initial person removing them from the castle, from the manor? I think that is the case. So in RuneScape, there's the Vampire Slayer quest, and you need to collect like a steak and a garlic to go fight the vampire, Count Draenor, in the basement, basically to rid the town of his influence is the idea. But this is implying that has happened before. Very interesting. His presence, his influence still lingers. Draenor Village's sewers are often populated by the walking dead, drawn to the fetid spaces beneath the streets by the residual grip the vampire lord still exerts. This means there's always work for adventurers prepared to descend into the darkness and clear out the sewers, but it remains a truly dangerous place to wander, and there's always the rumors of Count Draenor's return to claim what was once his. These are merely the fretful speculations of those who lived too long beneath the vampire's yoke, of course. Interesting. Okay. The wise old man. Yeah, the wise old man lives in Draenor. Interesting. That could be our anonymous author, but that feels too easy. So basically, when the Lumbridge Sage looks up at us and speaks the name Draenor, visions of a vampire menace lording over the town of Draenor immediately jump into Twinnrova's head. Someone may have written Twinnrova a letter asking for help in Draenor, having to do with Count Draenor. Quite interesting that the Lumbridge Sage has interpreted the letter in this way. If Draenor has actually been removed from the town of Draenor already, does the Lumbridge Sage suggest that we actually do, ironically, head inside to discuss this topic further? I'm going to say that after his anger, it's not likely, but it's also not unlikely given the heaviness of the topic. Let's say 50-50, which in a chaos factor of 4 is a 65% chance that he wants to actually take us off the streets to discuss this. 74, absolutely not. He wants to speak about this in the open. So maybe he just pulls us off to the side. Ironically, in Twinnrova, maybe not. But I think he notes the irony in him getting so upset about suggesting that we take this somewhere private and then kind of pulling him off to the side of the road. And I don't know, maybe the sage says something along the lines of, but Draenor's no more, or he was banished from the castle long ago. Who could have sent this? Does the sage recognize the handwriting? I'm going to say it's nearly impossible that he recognizes the handwriting, but not impossible. Nearly impossible. 18. Wow. Okay, so the Lumbridge Sage realizes, hang on a second. I think I know who this is. I think I know who wrote this letter. Wow. What a turn of events in 18. Okay, so the Lumbridge Sage looks up at Twinnrova and says, I know who wrote this. This was written by ... That is the cliffhanger. Thank you so very much for watching. I really appreciate you tuning in to the first episode, the first true episode of Let's Play RuneScape Kingdoms, the RPG, with me, your host, Twinnrova. Our character, Twinnrova, was created in the first session. In today's session, we received a letter. So on Twinnrova, I'll kind of recap the day. And please don't be too upset with me for the cliffhanger. I know that that's an exciting moment to end. But today, we established that Twinnrova's usual routine is to go back and forth between his home just outside of Lumbridge Castle to the southeast Lumbridge Swamp mine, where he mines, braves the dangers of the swamp regularly, comes back to Lumbridge to sell his ores in the market, and then to go home. That is his daily life, which is interrupted when we receive a letter, a mysterious letter with a riddle, suggesting that if Twinnrova is to help overthrow some foreign power, really just some power, not necessarily foreign, if Twinnrova is to overthrow some power, there's a great fortune awaiting him. On his way to the Lumbridge Sage, whose advice he seeks to try to decode the riddle, Sigmund, of all people, the advisor to Duke Horatio of Lumbridge, approaches him with a job offer, saying that the city of Varrock is looking for people with mining experience to join an expedition to the north into the wilderness, looking for I guess an archaeological expedition, I'm assuming for Zarosian remains, but it actually could be different. We don't know that yet, which is wild. So we have this job offer on the table, right? And then we finally reach the Lumbridge Sage and ask for his help. And not only does he immediately decode the riddle, he thinks it's Count Draenor, right? Not only does he think that the letter is referring to Count Draenor, but he actually thinks that he recognizes the handwriting on the letter. And in the next episode, we will discover who the Lumbridge Sage believes is the author of our anonymous letter. Thank you so very much for watching. I really appreciate you being here. If you like this content, don't forget to go hit that like button and to subscribe for more RuneScape and other retro RPG content. I'm Twinnrova. This is RuneScape Kingdoms, the role-playing game. And until the next episode, happy scaping and fight on.